In this video, we are going to review CPM concepts and principles. And what is CPM? It is the critical path method. It's a method that we use for communication between contractors, really. So we'll know who comes first, who comes second, and how our project will progress. We will apply these concepts to each one of our projects. And this week, we're going to talk about this in detail and we're going to apply it to our Quick Quack project. So I want you to make sure you do understand the concepts. You have a study page that has been created for you, and you'll be given all of the information to sign in and to log on so you can use this study page and the information that you input and you can print it. Okay, so if this is something that interests you, if you are a self performer, and that's usually the students that I teach are the self performers and their team. If you are into project management or want to learn, this is definitely something that you should learn. And so, if you're interested, please reach out to me at education@sfjohnsonconsulting.com. Make sure to join, like, subscribe if this is something you're interested in. I call myself the construction queen because, yes, I know almost everything. Now, don't ask me to go outside and build a house, but I can definitely tell you how much it would cost. Okay, but let's talk about CPM concepts and principles. The professional should know, okay? If you're working with general contractors, this is something that you should be proficient at because for the almost 17 years now that I've been doing this, starting out as a construction defect litigation adjuster for 10 years and coming into this for 17 years, the biggest issue with most contractors is, oh, I have to keep my crew busy. I have to keep my crew busy, or they'll leave me, they'll go work for somebody else. Well, yes. And part of keeping your crew busy is really knowing how long your projects are going to take, knowing how to implement critical path, okay, methodology, okay, the methods. And when you do have projects with GCs and others, being able to incorporate what you know about this into their project so they're not wasting your time. So you know what to put into your contracts so nobody wastes your time, your team's time. Okay. And so again, critical path method is a way that we communicate to each of the trades how long this project is going to take. And the key to even starting this thing, right? What do we have to know? We have to know how long a project's going to take. Well, how do we know how long a project is going to take? Well, we have to know how to what? Estimate the project and not guesstimate the project. Okay? When we are talking about critical path method, we're not talking about guessing. We're talking about knowing how long our job is going to take, breaking it down into its component parts. If we have to work with other people, then we know, who needs to be finished before we can even start. And that is critical. Okay, that's why they name it critical path method, because what we want to always do is stay on task. The owner expects his building to be built and selling his chicken in 6 months. Well, they came up with 6 months for a reason. And it's critical to the self performer, to the estimator, to the self performer, really to have an estimator that knows what they are doing, that they are basing their individual scope on construction industry standards. And that's the only way to know how to do it the right way. Guessing, what we're talking about right here is not for amateurs. Not for people that say, oh, just give me 1,500. No, based on what? And that's what we do. And so you can't even approach this class or this concept without knowing how to put together a proper estimate. Okay? Because you got to know who comes first, second, or third. Well, you only know who comes first, second, or third if you know how long his part is going to take. And how, again, how do you know how long his part's going to take? Well, there's a construction industry standard for how long it takes for you to do everything in construction. And so if you know you're doing 1,000 of those things, linear feet, square feet, whatever each, then you know how long it's going to take. It's really that simple. And it's really just math. And being a professional at this is really just having all the tools that you need. Really. And all the tools that you need is something to take accurate measurements for sure. Right. You can't guess on that. That's number one. Number two, yes, you have to have a way to equate your line items to time. Period. That's number two. And presentation, that's easy. Okay. And so, critical path method. Let's talk about the concept and principles. Okay. And it shows which tasks really control the finish date. Okay. So, look at this is your study guide, student, for this class, and use it. Take the notes that you should take the notes, and put it all together, make it easy for you. Okay, so let's talk about some of the concepts right now. All right, so I'm going to take that off because I want you to focus on the work and not the screen as soon as I can get it together. Okay, so again, you're going to have to take a quiz, and this sheet is there. So let's talk about key vocabulary and always take notes. Okay? Always take notes. That's why I took the screen off so you can listen and take notes. Okay? And so when we talk about critical path method, there's certain vocabulary that goes along with it. Okay? And so we're going to talk about some key vocabulary terms, what they mean, and I may add a little to it. Okay? And so activity is our first one. Our activity is what we do, right? It's basically our scope. So, pouring the slab, framing the walls, demoing the flooring, okay? And so that's our activity. The duration, of course, is how long it's going to take. And I already talked about that. We have to have a standardized way of looking at that no matter what we do, okay? Duration, how long is it going to take? Milestones, we always love the milestones. Okay, it's the 0 day checkpoint. Okay, a milestone. The permit. The dude's coming. Oh, I got a roof put on my house. The guy came. The inspector, right, came at least 3 times. I'm thinking, I know he didn't come for free 3 times, right? Because they had to do what they had to do. They didn't finish the roofing portion of my new HVAC, right? So I'm looking at it from the backyard. I'm like, that's not finished. I don't know. So it had to make some fun. Of course, I knew it wasn't finished because I'm seeing the metal from the roof curb not finished to my new roof. New roof, new HVAC should be looking better than that, right? See, ladies, that's why you got to make sure you know before you send any contractor to your house because they think you are stupid, and it's just that you're just not informed and you haven't been doing it for 17 years. Okay, so duration, how long is it going to take? Milestone, okay. Oh, the permit, we got, hey, the inspector's going to be here today at 12. Okay, so a milestone has to be before that, right? You know, you got to have done whatever needs to be done. The roof curb has to be down and finished before the inspector comes and gives you the okay on the HVAC unit. All right, so milestone. Float, of course. What's float? We floating along. That's the slack. That's some time. Okay, time a task can slip a little bit without delaying the project. And that's the goal of this whole thing is that the owner says, or the architect says, the GC says they've somehow figured it out and hopefully they did it the right way, that the project is going to take 6 months. Okay, Popeye's chicken. Okay, the typical plan for a new from the ground up is 6 months. And I have the complete construction schedule. Okay, 6 months, the door's open and ready to sell. That's why I said chicken, ready to sell the chicken. All right, so yeah, but some float, we'll give it float. Time a task can slip without delaying the project because we want to get it delivered on time. Because if it goes over time, right? If it's overtime, it's over budget. And they never like that. All right, so critical path, that's our main definition. Okay, the critical path is the longest chain with zero float. Okay, okay, and that's what controls the finish date. Okay, it's the longest chain with zero float. Did I say without? With zero float. That controls the finish date. So we'll have to figure out what that is. Critical path. Again, longest chain with zero float. And that is what controls the finish date. Because again, it all goes back to, do we know how long each thing is going to take? Okay, so if we know how long everything is going to take, we can do this properly. Okay, and then last vocabulary term, buffers. Okay, time cushions. Okay, whether it's the project feeding the project or resourcing, we have buffers in one way or another, and we'll incorporate all of that. And our first project again is going to be the quick quack. Okay, so let's talk about logic. Okay, right? If logic finished, I mean, logically, we can't do the pour the slab until the form work is done. Okay, so we have some logic terms. Okay, and this is how each of the tasks connect. Okay, so what are we doing? Let's go back. What are we doing? We're taking our scope of work and or multiple scopes of work, and we are trying to schedule it, and basically that's it. And apply the critical path method. Okay, so we can show which tasks control the finish date because we want to finish on time. Okay, we have activity, duration, milestone, float, also called slack, critical path, again, which is the longest chain with zero float. And what's float? What's float? Time that we could slip, so we never want to slip. So again, the critical path, if we have to go by definition, what does that mean? That's the longest chain, okay, with zero float. The longest chain with zero float. Basically, and I don't know if you can hear my phone. I love my family. They call during work hours. Just because you work at home. I love my family. Okay. And it's not an emergency. It never is. All right. So, what were we talking about? Logic and how the tasks connect. Because what are we trying to do? We have we have a project. We've got the estimate together, and so now we're just breaking all of that down. Okay, and then we'll talk about stuff like the WBS, work breakdown schedules. So yeah, we are the concrete professional, and we have certain tasks to make that finished product, right? Well, how do we break that down? The WBS. Okay, so let's talk about logic and how task, and that is how the task connects. So we have the F as in Felicia, my middle name, and the S as in Stacy. Okay, finish, start. B starts after A finishes. Okay, we can frame, example, we can frame the walls after the slab is good. Okay, FS, finish, start. B starts after A finishes. SS, start, start. Okay, so these are different ways of thinking for your critical path, how the task connects. So FS, finish, start. B starts after A finishes. And an example is I can frame the walls after the slab has been poured and dried and everything's finished. Next one is S as in Stacy, S as in Stacy. Start, start. B can start when A starts. And what examples can we think of that? Always. Usually it's the MEPs, right? The electrician and the plumber can do their rough work together. So start, start. FF, Felicia, Felicia, finish, finish. B finishes when A finishes. Clean up with landscape. Okay? Think about it that way. Finish, finish. B finishes when A finishes. SF, Stacy Felicia, start finish is rare. Okay? It's rare, it says. A must finish before B starts. Okay? A must finish before B starts. Night and day shifts is an example. And then lag, a delay between linked tasks. Okay? And they call that, by definition, that's our start, start plus 2 days equals start 2 days after. Okay, so that's the logic you think about when we think about the tasks related to our construction. Finish, start. B starts after A finishes. An example would be we can frame our walls once the slab is finished. Start, start. B can start at the same time that A can start. And an example of that is the electrician and the plumber in their rough work together. Finish, finish. B finishes when A finishes. So the cleanup or the final cleaning, as probably the tile work is done or something, or the cleanup with landscape, you know, that kind of thing. So next, start finish is rare. A must finish before B starts. And I've had those kind of jobs before. I've worked graveyard. So, and certain things we had to do, you have to do at night. And then if they didn't do what they had to do in the daytime, there's a whole lot less of those things to do at night when I worked at Motorola doing repairing pagers. So, or there'd be a ton of new stuff to do at night, which I loved because it kept me awake. All right. And then last but not least, we have lag is the delay between linked tasks. So there's a delay. Uh, we couldn't get the permit because the roofer didn't come and finish after the HVAC guy finished. So there was a lag of about 10 days in that case. Okay, so it was an SS plus T 10 days. Okay, so in our practice of working with these things, okay, we have to find our milestones, right? For instance, if we are, I mean, something as simple as if we are the demo contractor and we don't want the dumpster dumped until something's in it, until it's full, right? So we ordered the dumpster to come on Monday and we knew we'd be done by Friday, but we didn't start until Thursday. So what is, are they going to come get it? Or are we going to be able to do everything in one day? Okay, so you got to make sure first of all with critical path, you have to first work with the milestones. Okay, when is, because you do the permit guy long before you got to organize him because you thinking 6 weeks ahead, and that's another part of this class, the 6 weeks ahead portion. Once we get this right, then that's where I want to keep my guys busy portion. Okay, the 6 week look ahead. Okay, so right now with CPM, we're just talking about this is work we have, this is our estimate, and now we're going to break it down. Basically, our WBS. Okay, and a part of your WBS work breakdown schedule is the first thing we need to do is the milestone said this has to be this. We don't have a choice on this one, right? This has to be done on that day. which means whatever is previous to it has to be done. So the milestones, you get those, or you call them your goal. Why didn't I bring the phone close to me? Or you call them your goal posts, whatever you need to call them. Okay. And so from that point, we're going to trace the longest dependent chain. And that's our critical path. Longest dependent chain. Oh, I can't pour my concrete until the rebar is set. Okay. The long, and then concrete's usually the thing, right? Because it's got a set, it's got a cure, it's got a all of that, and we hope it don't rain. That kind of stuff. Okay, so check float on non-critical activities. Okay, so a critical path, reading the critical path. First, milestones of the goalpost. Trace the longest chain. Okay, and now the longest chain for an electrician may be getting a panel in because of just getting the panel, getting the things that you need. Okay, check the float on non-critical issues. And then we got to build the steps. Okay, building the steps are three things: listing the activities, finding the critical path, and updating weekly as progress changes. That's the thing. Okay, because you may go faster than normal, and that's a good thing too. Okay, so building steps. Okay, list the activities and set the durations. List the activities and set the durations means I know how to estimate the scope of work. Okay, and then we set our logic based on that. Find the critical path. Are there buffers where there is a portion of risk that exists? Okay, there's always some risk that could exist on any portion of any scope of work, but more so on some than others. Okay, and so that's what you want to look at. Okay, and weekly progress. I mean, to me, you should be doing, every day. That's the project manager's job. Every day. We have this 100 days of work. Okay, every day we should be knocking off well, let's say hours, not days, because we can let's say hours. We have so many hours of work, and every day, depending on how many people are in our crew, we should be knocking off that amount of the scope of work, which means we should be paying out that amount of labor, which means that we should be using that same amount of material associated to that. And then we could do stuff, break it down to office costs based on that, right? So we know the overhead for that particular project. We could do all of that if we know for the whole year, and this project took a hundredth or 10 day, whatever of a year, that all of that is supposed to be able to get done. Okay. And so that's listing activities, setting durations, okay, and critical path. You may have to make sure let's see, your panels are in, right? Because the HVAC professional is dropping the controls on a certain day and your panels aren't in. And that's the thing. That's part 2 and part 3. Okay? How to handle critical path when other trades are involved. Okay? And really how to do that, that's the general contractor's job if they know what they're doing, right? That's their job. That's why you're supposed to meet with them on a daily basis and say, "Okay, it's the general contractor. That's their job. Okay, so I'm going to help you deal with it, how to handle this. Okay, and you know how to handle it when other trades are involved, what to expect and what to look for in a contract when it comes to stuff like this. Okay, and that's part 3, how to incorporate this into your contract, how to incorporate timing issues into your contract, and what's the normal process for that. Okay, so all right, so list activities. That's the steps to building your critical path method. What are all of our activities? Which are the most critical? So we have to build our critical path knowing based on the full project or based on our scope of work or whatever. And then, yeah, we have to update that weekly because some things will change. Maybe we'll do faster than normal. If we don't, we have to adjust that too. Okay, so let's talk about common mistakes for the beginner. Okay, and most dangling task. Okay, oh, we left out the hauling of the debris, or we only charge for knockdown at the location and not hauling it to wherever. Okay, missing stuff. Okay, forgetting, oh, when I'm doing excavation, I may have to dewater. You don't know that adds time, and that should be part of a contingency somewhere within your cost too. It's so mind blowing if you want to do it the right way. Okay, so yeah, missing stuff and not knowing how to estimate your job in full. Okay, that's the common thing that's going to make you lose money, lose clients, is really not knowing the full breadth of what should be in your estimate, and being able to determine the time that that is associated with. Well, how much time does that mean? And it's easy to do if you have the right tools. Okay, so, and of course, not updating, and really, some of my clients just not checking up on your buddy that worked for you for 20 years. I mean, why check up on him? I trust him, right? We're bros. No. All right. So all your projects should be, I mean, just like you didn't know the people. That's how I try to, I mean, that's how I feel about my kids, right? And they burn me every time, and they're my kids. You know what I mean? So it happens. But you reduce the risk of that, but just by being organized, because this is money, this is your family's money, and you want to make sure you got all this right. So yeah, not updating the schedule after changes makes you just lose it, because now you're off task, you're off everything, and now you're not really clear. So organization is the first step in critical path and determining what it is and how to work with it. But of course, you have to have an estimator. Okay. And so, what we're going to do for each of your trades, student, we're going to determine that first. Our first project for the week of October 13th, 2025, for this whole week, we're going to work on our quick quack. Everything will be in Construct IQ for you to review. And you have to be able to have accurate takeoffs. So that's the first thing we're going to look at, are accurate takeoffs. So review this, and if you have any questions, make sure to reach out at education at sfjohnsonconsulting.com. Like, join, and subscribe.